Dirty Birds, what's up? And welcome to another edition of Falcons Final Whistle presented by Zaxby's, a special edition of Falcons Final Whistle because, Tori, last night the news broke, you broke the news, that Michael Penix will be the Falcons starting quarterback moving forward.
Yeah. So this has kind of been a little bit in the making. I think we can be honest in saying that the Falcons have not performed offensively to the level they need to in order to win games consistently, in order to score points consistently. And you have to talk about Kirk Cousins in that same conversation. And the facts are what they are. Kirk Cousins has led the league in interceptions this year. He has thrown one touchdown pass in 5 games. The Falcons are 1-4 in those games. Quarterback rating hasn't been good in the last month and a half. This was, to me, the only decision they could make. You know, nothing was getting better. Nothing was progressing. And to a certain extent, if you go back and look at that Raiders game and you only have Kirk Cousins, who you're paying $90 million, $100 million fully guaranteed, and you're only having him throw the ball 17 times against one of the league's, let's be honest, worst defenses in the Raiders. Going into that game, they were 25th in red zone defense. They were 30th in points allowed. To not score points against that team because of inefficiencies at the quarterback position, it tied the hands, I think, of the decision makers at the top. And we'll get into this, I'm sure. This wasn't supposed to be the plan. Like, this wasn't the plan. And you had to pivot and you had to accelerate plans in order to account for what we've seen the last 5 weeks.
I mean, I think you can take it a step further. The Falcons should have won that game by double digits.
Yes.
They should have blown the Raiders out. They played well enough on defense. They played well enough on special teams to win that game running away. And it was tight and got tighter in the fourth quarter, partially, probably a lot because of the way that the quarterback position has played recently and the way that, honestly, the offense felt like it had to manage the quarterback position.
Right.
And when your big-ticket free agent item is quarterback, and you brought him in here because that was the clear thing you had to address, Raheem Morris said it in his introductory press conference. If quarterback play had been better, he's probably not here. Well, the quarterback play over the last month and a half is very similar to what we saw last year. The year before that, it has been a repeating story for the Atlanta Falcons. And so in a statement in the story that you released, Raheem said, after review, we have made the decision Michael Penix will be the Atlanta Falcons starting quarterback moving forward. This was a football decision, and we are fully focused on preparing the team for Sunday's game against the New York Giants. So the first question I want to ask you, Tori, is did you actually expect the Falcons to make this change? Because it's easy to say, yes, we are continuing to look at everything. Yeah. We know that this has been a problem, but it's kind of another thing to actually make that move.
Yeah, I didn't think so. If I'm being completely honest, I was kind of like, I think they're just going to take it to the end of the year with Kirk. And I thought that really and truly, maybe to a certain extent, only because of how much money you were paying him.
Yeah.
And they kept saying, we have a plan for Michael Penix. We're not going to accelerate that plan. We don't want to, bring him in too soon and hurt his development, et cetera, et cetera. Like the plan. And then you get to the point where the only plan, if you want to win games, is to make a change. And I think, too, that something that Raheem Morris talked about on, Monday after the game and even was questioned a bit about it on Tuesday, about Kirk Cousins' confidence. And not just Kirk Cousins' confidence, but I think like the Falcons' confidence in Kirk Cousins.
That's the key.
That's the key, because I think you look at the play calling, you look at what Zach Robinson was wanting to do against the Raiders, and I know that they said, we were giving it to the hot hand in the run game and everything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. But I'm not saying I don't believe them. I do think you use Bijan Robinson. Heck, I even said when we were our last final whistle, I was like, run the dang ball as much as you can. Like, I said that. But even in saying that, you're kind of sitting back, and when you get to that point, like when it becomes that obvious, I think, is where it's like, you got to do what you got to do. This is a business, and as much as you kind of put money towards Kirk Cousins in the hope that he provides a certain sense of stability that you have not had at the quarterback position in the last 2 years, 2 seasons since trading Matt Ryan to the Indianapolis Colts. Like, I'm just kind of sitting here like, there wasn't stability.
Yeah.
If anything, it was very, very high highs and very, very low lows. And to a certain extent, you just needed to trust that he could go out there and help you win a game. And I don't know if that trust was there, maybe even within himself either.
Yeah.
Because Raheem Morris even was asked about his confidence, and he even said, like, confidence took a hit. And when your confidence takes a hit, I don't know, in anybody's job, in any part of life, it's going to affect you.
Well, the reason why, you see a lot of quarterbacks kind of hit that second peak in their mid-30s, late 30s, and can carry it along is because of, I think, that self-confidence that comes with, I know everything a defense is going to throw at me. I've seen it all before. Here's what I'm going to do. All right, you're bringing this guy. I'm going to check over here, and we're going to make this adjustment. And when you started to see that confidence take a little bit of a hit and it ultimately affects his play on the field, that is where it becomes very difficult. And it's a quarterback-driven league.
Yes.
Saturday, after coming up here, covering the team is almost like a Friday practice. I went back home and I watched Army-Navy.
Mm-hmm.
The Falcons don't need to be playing the style of football that I watched in that Army-Navy game.
Right.
As much as I would love for them to run the ball 40 times.
You know how much I love, old school, let's just beat up on each other
just
football.
The wing tee, UND lads sit there, talk about the wishbone all day long until the cows come home. Yeah. But that is not what the NFL is about.
That's not the modern league right now.
Exactly. And so I think that with your point about kind of the offense, and it's felt like the last few weeks we have not seen a full NFL offense with Kirk Cousins at the helm, which has been maybe the most surprising thing about all of this, is the way that the team has kind of, again, had to find ways to win almost while mitigating the quarterback to some degree.
Yeah, well, it goes, to me, it all hinges from not taking care of the ball. And you cannot, and I wrote this a couple weeks ago, but like, when you know that points are at a premium in this league, because you know that a lot of these games are going to come down to one score, because that's what the league values, and that's how, it's the reason that the modern landscape is what it is. It's why there's a salary cap. It's why draft order is a thing.
It's why this is the most popular sport in professional sports.
Exactly. It's all about parity, And so I think that because of knowing that, and if points are at a premium, then that means possessions are at a premium. And when you are actively giving the ball away and taking those opportunities away from the team at large and having to really rely heavily on the defense, which, to the defense's credit, has picked up in the last 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And I think that you saw a complete shift in what this defense, even to an unexpected shift. I didn't think they could do it.
And style, in the way that they went into that game on Monday night saying, we can win, we're okay winning this 15-9, even if it's going to be ugly, because maybe that is the best way to win. And it's just so interesting to me that you started out this year, 5-2, 6-3, with your defense not getting sacks.
Right.
But your quarterback was playing very well. And again, that is just the contrast and the dichotomy of what ultimately matters in this league. If you're able to score points, you look at the Lions, right? They have been decimated by injuries to the defensive side of the ball. And so they have said, all right, you know what we have to do is win shootouts.
You have to outscore people.
Exactly. And it's, that game against Buffalo was so entertaining and crazy. They ultimately didn't win, but you can see the thinking and how it adjusts.
Yeah.
And when you just kind of don't have that main gear to fall back on with your offense, an offense that has been invested in heavily, it's so hard to do. And it ultimately leads to this decision. So let's talk about kind of how this could resonate. Do you think this is going to be the right message to send to the locker room with 3 games remaining? And kind of what do you think it does send to the locker room? Yeah,
I go back to something that Grady Jarrett said a couple of weeks ago about the sense of urgency, and there needing to be a sense of urgency. Not that there wasn't before, or not that there isn't, right? But like really stating that. And I think this is a message that the coaching staff, the front office, sends to the locker room, and that like there are 3 games left in this thing.
We got to go.
We've got to go. You got to put the pedal to the floorboard. And you've got to, if you do what you say you wanted to do from the onset of the season, was to outrun the South, Right now you're behind Tampa Bay. You're trying to catch up, and you're kind of hoping that they trip a little bit.
Yeah.
And the only way that you can keep running, essentially, is to win these next 3 games.
Yeah.
And you're going to face the Giants, the Commanders, and the Panthers. And I think if you want to put yourself in the absolute best position against the Commanders in 2 weeks, you had to give Michael Penix the reps, even on a short week, against this Giants team, against this Giants defense specifically. So I think that it's very much like they said it in the offseason right when Raheem first got here, like the Falcons are in win now mode. Mm-hmm. That's been a calling card since the moment that they released Arthur Smith. That was something that Rich McKay and Arthur Blank said in that press conference.
No steps back.
The Falcons are in win now mode. Well, you were winning, and now you're not. You've lost 4 of the last 5, and the divisional lead has kind of slipped from you. So this is the move that, honestly, it's the only move that was left to be made.
Yeah.
You know, they've drafted so many offensive weapons. They have brought in some really key defenders. The defense is starting to pick up. Outside of the struggles that Younghoe Koo has had this season, special teams, what we saw against the Raiders, Kadero Hodge, there are good, solid pieces, consistent pieces of what we've seen from this team in the last few weeks outside of the quarterback position. And to your point, this is a quarterback-driven league. And I said at the beginning of the season, where Kirk Cousins goes is where the team goes. And right now, Kirk Cousins wasn't going.
Yeah.
So you needed to insert something to kind of push you along.
Yeah, you're hoping, to use the Outrun the South metaphor again, is like this is the second wind that you're getting late in the race. And there's one word, though, that I didn't hear you say, and I think it's accountability. And as a first-year head coach in a veteran locker room, right, that has expectations, you and I were there at the end of Dan Quinn's tenure, right? And one thing that I think ultimately kind of played a role in him no longer being here was that accountability piece and sticking to some of the guys who may have had a sense of entitlement, right? And I think that if you say to the locker room, hey, if you're not performing, it doesn't matter if you are a quarterback with $100 million guaranteed on your contract, we got to figure out a different solution. And so for every other player in that locker room, hey, I got to pick up my game a little bit, right? Because if it can happen to him, it can happen to me. Yeah. And I think that that's a very important message for Raheem Morris to send to the other players in this locker room. And also, we're not blind to what everybody else is seeing as well. And we know that a move needs to be made, and we're not going to make that move too late, right? And I'm sure a lot of fans could argue that maybe this move is coming too late. That's besides the point, right?
Yeah.
We're not seeing everything that they're seeing. So they did want to stick to that plan, but it's a little bit like the Joker in The Dark Knight, right? Like as soon as things go outside of the plan, everybody loses their minds.
Yeah.
We'll see ultimately whether they are able to stick with that plan. But how do you expect the offense to change under Michael Penix?
So I think it's something that I go back to what I talked to area scouts, front office guys, coaches about when they first drafted Michael Penix with the number 8 overall pick. It's like, why do you like this guy? Why do you feel such conviction in this guy? When you had Kirk Cousins on the roster, you're giving him $100 million. Like,
right. Why not go get another piece to help Kirk? Or why not add another piece to this playoff? Yeah.
What sold you on this guy? And of course, they talk, arm talent. He's the only, he's the only quarterback at the FBS level to throw for over 4,500 yards in back-to-back seasons since Patrick Mahomes did it. He
led college football in 2023, was second in 2022 by like a little bit.
Right. What he did at Washington was impressive, and how he was able to use that arm talent. But here's the thing is I think that they talked a lot about the arm talent, talked a lot about poise in the pocket, talked a lot about just the athleticism. And the reason I bring up the athleticism piece is because I think that was Kirk Cousins' kind of Achilles heel. Not to use that specific analogy, unfortunately, but
unfortunate analogy, but
an unfortunate analogy, but it was what it is. I say it, I stand by it. It was what it was. But the athleticism piece, the being able to shift out of the pocket, to move out of the pocket when things break down.
It's something I asked Raheem actually on Saturday was, especially in the red zone, right? Because that is another area where the Falcons have struggled recently. that spontaneous mobility.
Yeah.
And what kind of led me to that question was watching Baker Mayfield against Las Vegas in the preparation for Monday night's game. And just the way that you can get a defense on its heels in a condensed area just solely by moving around in the pocket and extending plays.
Yeah, and I want to say this too. Like, Michael Penix Jr. is not a dual threat quarterback. Like, he's an athletic quarterback.
Yes.
He can move outside the pocket. I feel like a lot of people get kind of like this one-track mind on like what is a pocket passer, what is a dual threat quarterback, and it's like it's a bit more fluid than that. Like, Michael Penix, his biggest strength is what I said before, is the arm talent. It's it's the fact that he's throwing bullets at these receivers, and he's incredibly accurate. I was talking to TJ Yates after the Falcons drafted Michael Penix, and this is the quote that I think just aligns with everything we're saying. He said, "He can make every throw on the field, can touch every part of the field with his arms, and he did it all by not taking any sacks." It's not like he's scrambling.
No.
He's just not taking sacks.
He's Matthew Stafford.
There you go.
That's exactly when he was drafted. I had Joe Patrick join me on the podcast, and that was my immediate takeaway was you just drafted a player that looks exactly like Matthew Stafford. Arm talent is the number one. Like, Matthew Stafford is your favorite quarterback's favorite quarterback. And Michael Penix has that kind of ability. And Matthew Stafford's not running around in the backfield, but he does enough to move, to create space, to get an arm angle, to then rip the ball down the field. And when we've seen some of these interceptions, you think back to the Chargers game, right? Kind of that one down to Drake London on the left-hand side. I just wonder if the zip is there, and we will see that zip with Michael Penix to fit it in these tight windows.
Immediately. And it'll come, at a cost as he's figuring it out. There's going to be growing pains. And
there's going to be turnovers.
There's going to be turnovers. But you owe it to yourself to make this move.
Imagine if there's not any turnovers, though.
I mean, that would be kind of crazy.
That would be pretty great.
But it would be, but it's really just, I don't know. I think this was the only, I keep saying this, but this was the only move that they had to make.
Yeah.
Like, you had to make this move.
So
go ahead.
Let's wrap up with this final question. Does it change your outlook for the remainder of the season?
Yes. I do feel a bit better about facing the Giants and the Panthers. I don't know how I feel about the Commanders.
That's going to be a Sunday night matchup to watch, though.
I know.
Jaden Daniels, Michael Penix, whoo.
I know.
Raheem Morris, whoo.
Here's the thing is, like, when that was announced that the Falcons and Commanders were being flexed to that Sunday night game against the Commanders, everybody on Twitter was like, why? Like, why again? Like, after what they just saw the Falcons do against the Raiders, and the fan base was just like, Lord, like, and but now that's a primetime matchup that a lot of people are going to be tuning in to see because it's Michael Penix versus Jaden Daniels. And honestly, I think this was such an important move that the Falcons gave to get a live game under his belt before going up to the Commanders to face Washington, especially knowing that DQ defense and what they present, and also just kind of what Jaden Daniels has done in terms of putting a spark within that offensive unit. You hope Michael Penix does the exact same thing. And I'm personally really excited to see what Michael Penix does with Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Darnell Mooney.
That's going to be interesting because we saw so clearly the Kirk Cousins Darnell connection, right? It's like those guys established a unique chemistry early on. Who is going to be Michael Penix's guy, right? Because I don't think Casey Washington, who is still in the concussion protocol, is going to be out there, right? And that has been kind of Penix's go-to guy since he's been here. So who's it going to be?
I think, to me, it's Drake.
Okay.
I think Drake has shown over, and it can be Darnell, it can be whoever,
Kyle
but
Pitts, it could be Kadarrell Hodge.
Yeah,
Who knows?
But if I'm a rookie quarterback just like trying to get the ball in somebody's hands, it's going to the guy who has the best opportunity in 50-50 balls.
The most tight window catches in the NFL this season.
Yeah. Yep. Really? Drake does?
Yeah.
Well,
16.
My point. Exactly. Like that to me is like, that has to be your guy. You have to trust him. And I'm excited to see how it goes. And, coming out of the bye week, they were talking about inserting more, needing to insert more play action.
Yep.
I think you have more opportunities to be able to do that with Michael Penix and have some success in the flow of the game.
Absolutely. Well, we will see, who emerges as Michael Penix's guy on Sunday, but right now, Michael Penix is the Falcons guy at quarterback. So we're going to wrap it up there, but we're going to have so much more coverage.
So much,
on
you guys.
AtlantaFalcons.com. We're going to have videos. We're going to have articles. We're going to have more podcasts throughout the week. So everybody, please stay tuned. Check out the social channels. Check out the website. It's going to be amazing content. Tori, thank you so much for joining me. Michael Penix, he is in at quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons. That'll wrap it up for us. We will see you guys again on Friday for Falcons Final Whistle, previewing the game and breaking down more of what we have heard the players, coaches, everybody say about this decision. But until then, everybody, take care. Today's episode of Falcons Final Whistle is brought to you by Zaxby's. And after a long game, when I'm tired and I need to refuel, I turn to Zaxby's. Their marinated, hand-breaded, fried to perfection chicken fingers, they hit the spot every time. Get yours with seasoned crinkle fries, a nice drink, and whichever of their 12 signature sauces you're feeling at the moment. But it always hits just right. So next time you need to refuel, go get yourself some Zaxby's.